do not have anyone else listed, correct? Okay. I do want to note we do have David Stanton submitted a letter to us. I guess he could not be here tonight, so that ends the public forum. We need to close it. The next order of business is special planning district traditions. Give us an overview.
Yeah, so thank you, Chairman. Here at staff level, we received an application from Traditions Building and Development Group requesting the Planning and Zoning Commission to look at their application for a special planning district. That is Exhibit A in your packets. This proposed SPD is located at 128 North Riverside Drive. It's specifically two parcels, one about 2.1 acres and the other about 1.75 acres. And the proposed development is 12 single-family detached dwelling units, approximately 24 by 56, 3 stories, with a minimum lot size of 0.114 acres. So that's what was submitted as far as the application. Just kind of a background or what is before, give you a kind of a synopsis of what's before the commission today. There's a procedure, as it's called out in 1151, for special planning districts. And the first step in that is a special planning district can be created in two forms, or let me rephrase that, initiated in two forms. It can actually be initiated by council, or an application would be submitted and then it would be reviewed by planning and zoning, and then there's a process that I'll go through on that. This is the second type, so this was initiated by a developer that was submitted to staff for review by P&Z. I'm going to read this kind of verbatim so that you can digest what the purpose of this meeting is. 115101 in the Code of Ordinances says the purpose of the SPD is to regulate the development and use of property in areas throughout the city that contain sensitive or unique environmental, historical, architectural, or other features which require additional protections and flexibility not provided through the application of the current standard zoning ordinance, and to promote creative and sensitive site planning. It is the intent of this section to provide for a district which will permit a greater range or mixture of compatible uses in areas that would be allowable in the standard zoning classifications of this zoning code, which also requiring features that protect against negative impacts of incompatible land uses or harm to the environment. It is the purpose of the district to provide an effective method for the city to guide the development of such areas so as to preserve such unique characteristics or to provide for the greater range or mixture of land uses when appropriate. So, what we're doing here today is simply looking at the application, and the commission will hear from the developer and from the landowner. But planning and zoning will have to make a determination if that meets the requirements, if their application meets the requirements to initiate an SPD. The initiation of an SPD would be that you would move this to, the next step would be a public hearing, and you would have more of the concept plan, a little more meat on the bones from the plan. Some more background, so that's kind of what your role is today, what your goal is today to achieve. Little background on the actual properties that are being proposed, or the parcels. It's split. The two parcels are split between two current zonings: residential medium density. Actually, 3: residential medium density, office residential, and scenic waterways active. The proposed development or concept plan encompasses the residential medium density and the office residential portions of the zoning. The scenic waterways and active waterways is kind of in the rear of the proposal. And then as you get farther, as you see in the exhibit, you'll see it's actually the regulated floodway that's in the, I guess it'd be southeast portion of the actual property. Currently, the way it's zoned with the R&D, as was already mentioned in the open forum, the R&D will allow one single-family unit per half acre. The OR would allow one per 7,500 square feet, which essentially, if you take those two areas that are OR and R&D, it's currently zoned where they would be able to put five single-family units on that property. The proposal to you today is for an SPD that would allow for 12 single-family units, which basically breaks down to about 3.1 units per acre. The other elements of the plan are lot areas of approximately 4,500 square feet, a lot width of 40 feet. Their front yard setbacks, they're proposing 20-foot minimum front yard setbacks, and their side yards are at 5-foot minimum. Their rear yards would be 20-foot minimums, and the height is 35-foot max. Basically, that is the gist of the concept plan that's been presented. At this point, if you have any questions for me, I'll take them. Or if there are any questions, but I'm also going to turn it over to the landowner to speak about the development. If you have any now. Mr. Schildmeyer, did you want to come up? He is the owner of the property.
My name is Terry Schildmeyer, and I'm one of the family members. My brother Larry had another meeting tonight, so I'm here by myself to represent. So I know a lot of people are here, and first of all, I want to thank the City of Loveland Zoning and Planning Committee. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your wisdom and your guidance here. You guys do a great job, and no matter what comes out of the meeting, we still support you. So thank you. Our homestead's been a part of the community for 71 years. It's 50. My parents were wed in 1953. My dad served in the United States Army Air Corps and United States Air Force during World War II. Upon his discharge, I met my mother. They got married. They built a home. Our two children, myself and my brother, were raised there. I've been here in the community, born and raised on the same street for 62 years. I do have a family myself, and my brother does too. We are currently not living on the property. We've been maintaining the property, and as you can tell from the white hair and things, I'm getting a little old. So what came about was Great Traditions Building Group had formed a relationship with them, and it wasn't anything more than trying to preserve everything that you're concerned about, we're concerned about, with the preservation of the value of the land, but at the same time, too, the natural resource that runs down through there. Memories flow through my veins of times when we'd sit in our backyard, and we lived in the river, so I know the river pretty well. At this time, I'd like to have Doug from Great Tradition to form a relationship with. He has spent timeless hours with us over the last 14 months. Is this something that could work? no, we don't think so, but, you know, the only way we're gonna find out is that we bring it to fruition with the design and the thoughts that he has that's gonna keep it away from the resource, to be able to provide a gateway to the western side of Loveland. That's going to be kept in keeping of what is already in existence. So at this time, I'm going to ask Doug, who's the president of Great Traditions, to step forward to take a few minutes and give you the scope of what direction we're moving at this point. Thanks, Doug.
Good evening. Thank you to Loveland Planning and Zoning Commission, the city manager, and the city staff. My name is Doug Hanger. I'm the president of Traditions Building and Development Group. Address is 4000 Executive Park Drive, Shenandoah, Ohio. I'd like to introduce along with me tonight Andrew Dodds from MSP Design and engineers we've been working with. Have extensive experience working in the river communities and also in Loveland, and we're excited to be here this evening. Thanks to all of you for showing up. I know you're very interested in it. It's a very important piece of property here within Loveland. I've been designing and building projects now for over 40 years, for the last 20 years with Traditions, and we like to think that we've got the experience and the know-how to create something that balances all the competing interests here. And we've done a lot of work to try to come out of the gate here with something that is suitable and is a good starting point. So we were approached by the Schildmeyer family in 2023 to help them develop this property, and they had 4 goals. Their first goal was to build a high-quality residential development with new homes that contribute to the ongoing development of downtown Loveland. I don't know how many of you know, but we were one of the first developers to have the rights to develop the central part of Loveland. And it did work at the time. We're back here again. Hopefully we can contribute to that development that's been going on ever since. The second goal that they had was to reinforce the historic residential character of the Riverside Drive neighborhood, which they've lived there for 60-some years. The third one is to acknowledge the historic importance of the Little Miami River and maintain the natural features of the riverbank and floodplain. An interest that's been expressed here already this evening. And the fourth part, just being a member of the community of the Schildmeyer family, they want to be a catalyst for new development on the west side of the Little Miami River. So we've been working with the Schildmeyers and the city staff for the past year so that we could design that project. The staff's suggestion that a special planning district was the best format for the city to review this project brings us here tonight. Our request is for the Planning and Zoning Commission to determine that necessary conditions are present as findings of fact and approve a recommendation to hold a public hearing to establish a special planning district for the property. I'm going to focus on those particular aspects, but just briefly, our concept is to build 12 single-family homes on fee simple lots on the west side of the property along Riverside Drive. This will require importing enough soil to raise the grade 7 to 10 feet under the homes and driveway. And that would put the first floor right on Riverside Drive, so we walk out onto the street. About half the property located along the riverfront is in the regulatory floodplain as shown on the plan. That area will be fenced off and kept undisturbed during construction. Once the homes are complete, this land plus additional property will be landscaped and retained as natural open space owned and maintained by the new community's HOA. Along Riverside Drive, the streetscape will be pedestrian oriented and in keeping with the historic character of the neighborhood and also aligned with the comprehensive plan. One of the keys to this is that there won't be any garage doors on the front of the street with all the curb cuts. This runs against the character of the neighborhood and something that we try to avoid at all costs. Instead, the home will feature covered entries and porches, street trees, wide sidewalks, and artful landscaping that complement the existing streetscape of Riverside Drive. No parking is an issue down here in Loveland, and each home has a 2- or 3-car garage that enters from a common shared driveway at the rear of each owner's home's lower level. In addition, there are 2 guest parking spaces, so each home will have 4 or 5 parking spaces available within the property. The design of the new homes will be inspired by historic building types found in Ohio Valley river towns like Loveland. These homes are culturally and historically narrow and deep. They're placed on narrow and deep building lots. And you can find examples of this building type throughout Loveland and actually within the Riverside Drive neighborhood on the street. Existing dimensional building requirements remain as currently permitted, but our homes would be 2.5 stories in height. And what I mean by that is the top floor is not a full third floor. It's typically the roof, it's a mansard roof, there are gables and ways that you can get living area on the top floor without it appearing to be a full 3-story height building. And again, you can see this in all the River City homes that are located throughout Loveland and the River Valley. But I think the key there is that no two homes here are going to look alike. Every home is going to be different. We have projects that we've done that can demonstrate our ability to do that. The heart of the proceedings tonight, however, is to determine if the commission is able to make findings of fact for at least one of 3 allowable conditions for the establishment of a special planning district. And one of you already talked about these 3. The first one is for commercial and service uses, and it's not applicable to this property. The second option states that land that is occupied by substantial natural characteristics worthy of preservation. And virtually every speaker up here tonight has talked about that natural characteristics of the riverbank, floodway, and the whole space that runs along the river. We concur. If you remember, that was one of the things that the Schildmeyer family wanted to do as well. So we already have some common ground, and I think that's really important. So this frontage along the Little Miami River, directly across from Nisbet Park and Bike Trail, is what we're talking about. The adoption of the special planning district would allow for the preservation of open space along the river, its floodway, and the natural corridor of the waterway of the riverbanks. The third option is for lands with permit for ingenuity, imagination, and design effort to reduce residential developments which are in keeping with overall land use intensity and open space objectives. We've done a lot of work up front to make sure that what we're proposing is plausible, and that it's feasible, and that it meets these requirements. And in fact, this SPD would now allow the residential buildings to be concentrated on higher ground near Riverside Drive and allow us to maintain the open space and tree cover that currently exists. And really, the second and the third options here really dovetail together to make the project work. New homes will be built along the west side of the site on Riverside Drive. The remaining and biggest part of the property will be natural open space along the river's edge, with views from the river and from Nisbet Park remaining as they currently exist. Now, I'm a kayaker and I'm a biker. And I'm on the trail and I'm on the river a lot. So I know how important that is. And I also know that there are parts where being too close to the river has been detrimental to the community, to the roadways, and to the environment. We've already started working with some of the regulatory authorities regarding the FEMA and the floodway. We have worked in this area before. Our engineers have extensive history in this, and we believe that we're able to do that, to do this development properly. But I believe that, as supported by the people here, the substantial natural characteristic of the riverfront and the banks is what the special planning district was really designed to protect. And we think it is the proper way to vet this project and see it through the approval process. Thank you for the opportunity to submit this proposal. We're available to answer any questions, and we look forward to working with you over the next several months as we present more details to the local community.
Thank you. Yeah. I want to make one clarification. Correct. There's 2 methods to initiate a special planning district. There's one through council, one through us. And so what we're here now is the review, preliminary review meeting to meet with the applicant, with the planning and zoning commission, which is us, the regularly scheduled meeting, which is this week. Then the next step, if we were to determine that project, proposed project may fall within the SPD purpose and scope as defined within section 1151.01, which is different from the council's, correct? That's the statement you read, that is the 15 or 1151.01 purpose and scope. So the finding of fact, those 3 points, is applicable to council, not to us, correct?
That is correct. The way the code is written, that is correct. Your focus should be on 1151.01.
Right.
And And keep in mind, one of the key components of the B, 115102, 2B is that the proposed project may fall within the SPD purpose. So it would be vetted out and worked out through the public hearing and through multiple meetings to see if the SPD would be officially approved.
There's a statement here, while also requiring features that protect against negative impacts of incompatible land uses or harm to the environment. So that's all part of that, the evaluation of this. If we were approved to go on, it would be evaluated based on that state, 1151.01. So.
Yes,
Just wanted to clarify.
correct. Based on the SPD 1151, your focus is on the purpose and scope statement, and how you all as a board see this development fitting into that.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions?
I appreciate the clarification because it is a little tricky, but the initiation discussion is really what we're talking about, whether or not the project is to be initiated for a public hearing. That's all.
Do we have any discussions? Thank you very much for that. Yes.
So start.
Okay.
So under 115101, right, and I appreciate Sharon's comments about the other three amendments to council, but in 115101, it talks specifically about unique environmental, historic, architectural, or other features which require additional protections and flexibility not provided under the rest of the zoning code. In this case, because there's three zones, right? There's RMD, there's OR, and there's Scenic Waterway Act. That protection was put in place many years ago to protect that area. And so what I'm struggling with, and why I don't think the SPD fits from my perspective, is there aren't additional required protections that are needed for that environmental protection. It's already there with the Scenic Waterway Act, because it's limited in that entire space to the auxiliary buildings. I think you can put maybe one home, but it's in floodplain. So I think my struggle is why an SPD when the protection is already there. I think there's some other paths that could take place if you wanted to develop the property, but I'm not sure that the SPD is the path that is appropriate in this case. This is my perspective. I'd like to hear from the others on it.
Sure, I'll weigh in on that because I agree with that conflict in some ways when it comes to this case, because the three zones are relatively incompatible. And so from the project standpoint, SPD seems the obvious choice, because how else can you create a proposal and develop a land that sort of balances the different characteristics of the three unique zones. But I also see your point, Mr. Royce, here about Scenic Waterway, and many of the folks touched on this. It is already being protected and exists as a protective layer, so as to a hidden development. So I think that does put us at a little bit of a quandary of this proposal, in the sense that where the two are deemed part of the neighborhood and could be developed off of the OR and the RMD. I just have a hard time reconciling that with the SWA portion. And I think just from the comments of the folks here tonight, that's been the primary concern with that. So I'm not sure of the other recourses that the applicant has to pursue something similar to this, or anything really beyond an SPD, unless there was a more obvious, or a less obvious option to take SWA out of the equation and focus on 2 more compatible zones.
I would have some suggestions, but that's not the person.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Happy to talk about it.
Correct. That's why I feel, in my way of thinking, that the initiation and further discussion and further details around the proposal may warrant. A lot of folks were talking a little bit about this is just the beginning. This is a good starting point. So that's the other side we bring for me. The conflict is, does SWA warrant an opportunity for development in this case? Because it's otherwise difficult to say what the sweet spot is between those 3 zones, unless you're willing to say, okay, we'll work with the applicant to find a way to do that.
I understand wholeheartedly the idea that they just want to nod and say, hey, what can we do for our next step? The next steps are just getting all of the Corps of Engineers information, all of the design. But from a development standpoint, they got to be able to say, okay, is this, if we take and expend that amount of money, which is a sizable amount of money to do that, is it appropriate? Where are we? What are our expectations? Tonight is just the step 1 in saying, okay, we'll create this district, but you still have a lot of work to do. You still have to get all that information. There's 4 additional meetings that they will be required to have much greater information and documentation that we will all have opportunity to review. And I go to the in 115101. And you can read this. It is the intent of this section to provide for a district which will permit a greater range of mixture of compatible uses in areas than would be allowable in the standard zoning classifications of the zoning code, while also requiring features that protect against negative impacts of incompatible land uses or harm to the environment. We have 3 incompatible, 2 compatible. They're not the same zone. So we have to be able to say we can start this process at any point in time. We will ask them for more information, but I think it's a point that this could be denied later on. But if we don't have the right information, but allowing them to say, hey, we will create this zone so that we have some flexibility. Mr. Schildmeyer could go put 5 houses there that are $3 million homes, and nobody would like that either. And you could do that. So you always have to weigh what that balance is for the landowner to be able to progress forward in a reasonable development. And I think with this board, we would have that. Part of that is our responsibility, and what we've been tasked to do is to evaluate these things, but we can't just start off saying no. That's my thought.
I think the advantage SVD does, and I take Mr. Weber's point, understand where you're coming from. True. One thing SVD does give us is advantage is that we can control the development and say what we want and don't want, versus standard zoning is you're going to put it in there and there's not a whole lot of guidelines. We can actually specify what we want and don't want to do, and if this board feels like it's a negative impact to the environment, obviously we don't want to do that. So, but it gives us a process, and we can request things like Army Corps of Engineers and other and other people to come in and look at it and study it if we want. So we can ask for that. It's not that this is, if we were to approve it, it's not that we're saying, hey, we agree with everything they presented to us. We might not, we haven't even discussed that. So the purpose of this is the next step forward. Is something we want to investigate. And you said, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 5, you could put 5 homes on that property now, is that
Yeah, essentially, it'd be 1 on the R&D and 4 on the OR. So, yeah, it would be 5.
And then you wouldn't have any say of what they did or how it looked or what it looked like? Or
Not necessarily, I mean, they would have to follow the R&D guidelines, whatever, the setbacks, all that kind of stuff, and the OR guidelines. But as far as, even with detention, when you get to the 5, even that, we'd have to look at it. I don't know what detention would be called for only 5 homes, I don't know, so.
Yes.
And one more thing, you go to the next sentence, and this is what we're tasked to do, it is a purpose of this district to provide an effective method for the city to guide. And that's what, when they come back in the future hearings, is we can guide where we want this to go with the community input. The development in such areas as to preserve such unique characteristics or to provide for a greater range or mixture of land uses when appropriate. So this is not even step 1. This is really, they're getting up to the starting line to say, can we go? And I think this is an appropriate way to approach it.
Well, Mr. Parker, just to carry on to that point, I think that in a lot of ways, because we are before the starting gun, we're almost limited to both the information that we can receive from the applicant, but also the type of feedback that we can get. We should be looking just at Mr. Wine reference 1151, purpose and scope section. So, yeah, I think that is an important distinction with regards to this would not be a decision to recommend an SPD. This would be a decision to set a public hearing where we would be initiating the SPD process. And I think that we can all benefit from more information on a project like this. As a result of giving people, there was an advantage, honestly, with the canceled meeting in the sense that the public had a 30-day window that would not have otherwise been there. And going through our normal process, this would have been something we have seen and sat with for a few days. And to carry on with the process with the official public hearing could only bring greater awareness and input on this project for those of us sitting here in the Planning Zone Commission. So I can see the advantage of following the process, because we were talking about, well, if we were to close the door to done today, the project could go forward in a completely different manner. It wouldn't be this project, but yeah, there would be permits made to develop this in a more traditional way. So,
And it does say the proposed, excuse me, I'm losing my words tonight, proposed project may fall within. So
yeah, it may.
we're not even deciding it. It's just, we want to move forward. Yes. Yeah.
So, a couple thoughts, and I'm trying to listen to what you have to say, but historically, what we instituted and used the SPD for is we have a zone, right? It might be R&D, and there was certain geographic features that we wanted to protect, and so we would cluster the density, still appropriate for the overall property, in a manner to protect that geographic natural feature. In this case, it's different. There's actually 3 different zones. And I'm not going to get into the whole density discussion because that's for down the road. But when we have 3 zones, this is a bit unique. Now, if you take this and think of it as an SPD, what the SPD then becomes is it takes and becomes the zone. So the OR, R&D, and Scenic Waterway go away in this property, and the SPD becomes the controlling document, which means that any protections under the Scenic Waterway have to be incorporated in this, or they are gone. because it's all under the SPD. So my biggest problem is we're talking about, well, we either go forward to have the SPD and think about what it's going to be, or they could just develop it, which is true. There's also a third option in there, which is we have a discussion about what other options there are other than creating an SPD and overwriting the scenic waterway. My biggest issue is I don't want to overwrite the scenic waterway protections for the river. I still think, part of zoning is to protect your rights to your property and what you can do with it. On the flip side, we're also protecting all the neighbors, right, in the community. So that's the two hats that we have to wear in how we help you realize the best value in what you can do with your property and protect the community and the neighbors. And I think the scenic waterway zone needs to have a little bit more respect than overwriting with an SPD. I think we need to have more discussion around what could be done, but I'm not in favor of overstepping the scenic waterway.
I lost it. No, I think all I was going to reaffirm was you are if a motion was made, the motion would be the initiation of the SPD. That's all you would be doing. And then you would have a second motion setting a public hearing. That would be the process going forward should you go that direction.
So we can then debate and talk about the scenic waterway issues. We're not, I guess I want to make sure we're not saying it is, we're saying it has the potential to be an SPD.
That is correct.
We're not saying and setting that up yet. It's not like
No.
we said, oh, it's now an SPD and everything else.
Nothing you do tonight says it's in fact, it would go, tonight would be, we initiate the SPD public hearing, essentially. The next meeting, the next scheduled meeting, you would meet, it would be you would have a public hearing. It would be similar to tonight, very similar. At the conclusion of that meeting, you would have an opportunity within either that meeting or within 30 days to recommend either approval, denial, or more work to be done. And at that point, it would be sent to city council. And even at that point, it's not an SPD. It's just a recommendation to city council, and then they have to prove. That's where those three components come in, and city council will do it also as a public hearing. And then it goes from there.
I think we'd like to understand, at least I would like to understand, Mr. Weicker, I cannot talk. It's a point about overriding other controls and mechanisms, and then how to play all three of these things.
Just a question around, you mentioned that if this were to go to a public hearing, that you'd expect it to be similar. Is there anything that we could expect that would be different?
To be completely honest with you, based on the code, it's really going to be a very similar, as far as a proposal, as far as what they're showing. It's a very general. It's not even a conceptual. It's a conceptual plan, but nothing is required of true substance, in my opinion, based on how the code reads today. So you're going to hear very similar. Now, if I'm the developer, I've taken it to I've listened, and I'm sure Doug has. I've listened, and he more than likely is going to bring some more information to the table. But as far as what's required, very similar.
Well, I think that's the advantage that right now the developers somewhat operated, not, I wouldn't say in a vacuum, but you haven't had the benefit of all the public input that you're, what people thought. So I think that's valuable, just to hear some of that from everyone. So it gives you some more data points to work with. Yeah, go ahead.
I can't speak for council. I'm not going to put him in that position either. Have his day, depending on where this goes. My only like I said, I can't support, because I don't think it really meets it, because I think the scenic waterway already covers the need for an SPD. I understand the need to do something unique because of the zones in the property. I just don't think the SPD is the answer. I just want to save the property owner, developer, another month worth of time before it goes to council. I can't speak for council where that's going to go, but personally, I don't think it meets the need of an SPD. I understand we could make that happen. I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
Well, I struggle with the scenic waterway issue, certainly as the crux of this license, so that,
So I'm just going to reiterate, in Chris's memo, it talks about the scenic water active or single family or permitted will be designated as detention and open space.
okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
In Dave's memo, Mark, there's a copy over there. It says that there's two zones, RMG and OR, and the scenic water active will be designated as open space, common area, or detention.
Well, again, I think that it's, the challenge that I have is to reconcile those two notions that the SPD is meant to help to guide the process in areas where I think it's appropriate, and also, to your point, protection. So if we were to move this forward, one thing that I would like to see more of is specifics around that point of building attention into the scenic waterway, the fill, some of the, all of the details that would be germane to riverside development in that zone, and in the project in particular. So, I mean, to my thinking, and again, Mr. Vice River, if we're going to have a conversation about what those options might be, I think that the only way we can further this conversation is to move into a public hearing 30 days from now. Otherwise, the conversation becomes less transparent and it's about what's possible given the current zoning or what's going back to the drawing board from the developer's perspective or the property owner. So I don't know that that's the best answer either. So, like I said, I came into this conflict, I really don't feel much better, but I feel like that hearing more about this project would be to the benefit of all parties involved.
Comments?
Just to help you, just to guide that a little farther, I think as a commission, you can certainly, if you decide to move to a public hearing, as a commission, you can make it, I think you are making it known, but I'm just kind of reiterating that as a commission, you're looking, even though there's no requirements, as a commission, you're looking for answers to some of your questions during that next potential presentation and conceptual plan. So I think, I understand what you're looking for, and again, it is open-ended, but I think, right, the way it sounds, obviously you need more, you want more information to be able to make a decision at that point potentially. So I'm just reiterating that you're looking for more information.
Yeah, I have just a question. Does it have to be 30, does it have to be, we agree that move forward with this hearing, does it have to be at the January 17th?
It has to, within 45 days of this meeting. So now, it's supposed to be within 45 days, but Mr. Kennedy can correct me if I'm wrong. But if there's a joint agreement between the commission and the developer, you can work on that. It's not hard. Now, if the developer says I want it within 40 days, they have every right to. But I'm sure the developer will work with you on whatever you need.
I just know we got This is a goofy month.
Well,
yeah,
It's calendar-wise, people working.
Yeah, so 45 days is a cap, because you don't want to go too far to just drag your feet.
Correct.
So you can do it quicker, however, you
Yeah.
have to advertise and go through the functional requirements. The only real issue, as you said, the March Parker is the fact that it's December, it's just before the month.
Yeah, our next regular scheduled meeting would be January 7th.
And then, the 45 days would be on a council, would be 14.
Yeah, so it just has to be before that.
Just has to be before, that's
Yeah.
a, it's an end cap.
Correct.
I think Mr. Parker's point is that, you got 2 weeks in the end of December, which nothing happens.
It's gonna be 3 weeks this year.
No, it's trying to get people to gather information. Yeah, I would like to understand what the city waterway protection right now are, like, I just don't know. Yeah, as we go back to understand better as well, so.
And I can, depending on where this goes, I can certainly bring more information on what that zoning code means exactly currently today, and give you more information on that. So I understand that.
One other thought. When you put all 3 zones together, and I can see the reason why you want to do that, you use the total acreage to start talking about using that as a denominator for your density. And so you end up having acreage, right, for a number of units. The question is it appropriate in an area where you couldn't develop it under the Scenic Waterway Act anyway, right? Normally, back to historic, what we normally do, if you think about a zone that's R&D, you use the density for the R&D, but you cluster it into a tight area to protect the rest. In this case, you don't have that, right? You have a Scenic Waterway, but you also have 2 other zones that are developable. And so, you know, things to kick around is, one, I'm not going to support an SPD for the whole thing, but would you do an SPD for the other 2 zones together and leave Scenic Waterway out there? What are the other things that you could do to protect the Scenic Waterway? There are other choices. So that's up to the developer, the property owners, and the board at some point. But I think trying to use all of it and then overriding the Scenic Waterway, and if I think what I've heard, you want a little more time to understand what falls within the zone capabilities, I just try not to kick it down the road too far. So
Just to follow up on that, to help you with that struggle, your development guidelines, you can tailor, those can be tailored to almost mimic that SWA2. So there is a mechanism through the development guidelines to protect that. So just something to keep in mind.
Everyone make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Make a recommendation, make a motion to determine, to initiate the SPD process and make a recommendation for a public hearing on or about January 7th, 2025.
Second.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Weisberger?
no,
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
3-0, motion carries. 3-1, motion carries.
All right, next order of business, communications, anything?
No, nothing there. Just to follow up on that, because I think, just to follow up on that, we will work with the developer on coming, and developer and the board on a suitable date. Like I said, I know that the developer will work with us on that, so obviously we've got that 45-day cap, and we'll work with it based on schedules. I'm sure they're going to be busy during the holiday season too. So we'll work with everyone, and we'll take care of that at the staff level. We'll keep you in the loop.
Hearing no other business, we have a Motion to adjourn.
I agree with Chris, I think you're gonna have problems trying to squeeze that in, especially. with
Yes,
council.
and we need to comment on our agreement to that, or is that something?
No, I just think that when you're going against the rules, it's, Joe Braun's always told me if both sides will agree to it, then waive. So that way they can't come back and say you didn't act, so it's approved, and you can't say, so.
Could that be covered in our next meeting as well? If it's not, we can have that discussion. Would that be?
Yeah,
publicly
you're just,
be with-
you're trusting staff to do it, but the way that's playing out, I got a funny feeling you're gonna probably have to ask that 45-day thing.
You can make a motion, you're still in a meeting.
You can certainly make a motion, that way it's on the minutes if you've already
Yeah, well-
agreed.
Yeah, we haven't adjourned yet.
So want to make a motion to that effect.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the commission is agreeable to extending the time a reasonable amount. Do we want to put a date on it, Dave?
No, I would say usually agreeable one.
If we're mutually agreeable with the developer to extend the time, we will agree to
Second?
Second.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. Weisgerber,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
this. Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
Any others? Yes. Move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.